Coming to you from the dining room table at East Barbary Lane, welcome to a quick and dirty Pride episode of Full Circle, the podcast.
Oh my. I am your host, Charles Tyson Jr.
And I'm your host, Martha Madrigal. Welcome to the Full Circle table.
Quick and dirty Pride episode. I know I'm all ears.
Hey, well. So... we're recording on June 15th, yesterday, June 14th. I think forevermore will be known as No King's Day.
Chaw?
Yeah. The pictures are astounding of all of the places in all 50 states where people gathered.
That were not the happy, happy, joy, joy birthday parade for the man baby.
No, it makes one scratch one's head as to how he even got back in. But that aside, the pictures from Washington, D.C. on the same day are pathetic.
Chaw?
Yeah. We already had a commitment.
Yes, we did.
For June 14th. As I've mentioned, we table for my program all throughout Pride. That's my day job where I actually make money. Mm-hmm. And I was asked to give a keynote to the small and wonderful Pride celebration in Pitman, New Jersey.
Yes.
Which is, it's right here and it's the next town over. But when I grew up, it was kind of our town center, because this is all just residential where we live.
Right.
And so our parish church and our library and our movie theater and barbershop and all bank and we're all there in Pitman. So
right.
I our fireworks on the 4th of July. So I grew up going there and being there. And it was an honor to be asked to give a keynote this year. Yeah. When transfix are under attack. So I did.
You did, and it was wonderful.
It happened.
It was very powerful.
Thank you. And I wanted to share that, and that is what this episode actually is. We're not going to get into the news but on No King's Day across this country and around this world, a lot of people stood up and said, what's happening is not okay. Not okay.
And that's what needs to happen.
It does. Sadly, in Minnesota, with 2 shootings.
Yeah. 2 Minnesota.
I want to say representatives, or one was a rep and one was a senator.
Right.
One couple died, a representative and her husband. And then a representative and his wife are right now in I believe, critical condition.
Yeah.
And that's the story where mom,
leapt in front of her daughter.
Her 20-year-old daughter to shield
her
from the gunfire. Once again, a white terrorist.
Yep.
That, we won't call that, but we should.
Oh, we will.
Oh, we will. Yeah. Once again, a deranged MAGA cultist who thinks they're doing, the work of their overlord, who does call for violence.
A radicalized Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Let's just say it.
I mean, aren't they all at this point? Because, well,
if we're not going to say terrorist, that's the next thing.
Well, that's what the January 6th pardons said to the world is, we hold no one accountable as long as they cheer for me. And the photos from D.C. at the military parade, I mean,
right.
Empty stands, empty streets.
Threw a big expensive party for yourself.
$45 million, I think, is,
And nobody came.
Yeah, an incredible waste of taxpayer money, but that's what this president is and has been on his golfing expeditions.
Including the electricity that it took to write the Craigslist ad looking for seat fillers.
I know, right? Everything that they accuse us of, they do.
Yeah.
That's how this entire nonsense works. Yeah, they were offering to pay seat fillers.
$1,000 in crypto.
I don't even know how much money that actually is. Is that $1? I don't know.
Well, I think it's his own crypto, so
I don't know.
-3 pieces of belly button lint. I don't know.
I have no idea. But yeah, that was that happened, and it was documented, and whatever. But of course, everything they accuse us of is what they're actually doing,
Right?
And their followers parrot it. And the fun thing, I guess, about the talk, speech, address, I don't know, what do I call it? The keynote I just gave,
Yes.
is the protesters in the background. They were not shouting. They had been there through most of the morning. We started around 10.
Look at my Instagram and you can see the leader.
Yeah, yeah, Charles, yeah. Fucked with him. And they were not loud. And they actually weren't loud while Miss Pitman spoke, which is good because she's a senior in high school.
Right.
Who also is bisexual. And she gave a wonderful, powerful speech. And, then I came up and they got loud out on the street. They got really fucking loud.
Yeah, they tried to drown you out. And
yeah, they were trying to.
You had supporters that were not trying to let them.
Right. You'll hear whistling in the background. And that's actually our supporters who were kind of at the edge. So, where we were, there were chairs and seats and kids were sitting on little carpets in front of the seats. And then we had a big standing room crowd. And they went all the way to the sidewalk. And they were whistling and trying to drown out the three protesters who were trying to be obnoxiously loud. Because apparently I am a dangerous woman.
Yes, you are.
I love that they properly gendered me as they talked about me.
Right.
Thank y'all.
Right. I mean, they got it right. You are a dangerous woman.
Yeah, well. This is not a dangerous speech, or at least it shouldn't be.
Right.
But
if you
yes,
consider this speech to be dangerous, then you are part of the problem.
Allegedly, the folks screaming in the background labeled me a dangerous woman, and I want a T-shirt now.
Right.
It's just like every time you fuck with us, we add a letter to our acronym. I want a T-shirt.
Okay. So what we're going to be LGBTQ IAD plus for dangerous.
Yeah. I didn't think this was a dangerous speech.
Not at all.
I wrote it and rewrote it a few times because
it was powerful. It was uplifting. It was motivating. It was invigorating.
Thank you. It's hard to keep up.
I mean, it's dangerous in that you are an intelligent, literate, forward-thinking, progressive-minded woman. So
I was so tired of your shit that I am not. I am not the one.
So to the fragile cishet male mind, that is dangerous.
I'm sure it is. But yeah, fine. Fine. Anytime, anywhere, boys. Come on.
Phrasing.
Anytime. Anywhere. And the dude,
cash up front.
The dude with the biggest sign was totally checking you out while you were like. So at one point, I said to you, he was getting dangerously close to people. Like, not dangerous, like annoyingly close to people, and it wasn't okay.
Right.
Like invading their personal space, kind of blocking their exit, because you kind of walk out on the sidewalk to walk around to the other side of the building where Pride was taking place. And your response was to go over and start taking selfies with him in the background. And he backed up really far and really fast. And you kept taking pictures, which I adore. And you did post them.
I did.
And in one of them, it's clear he's also checking you out. Which is part of what I loved about the day. Because, like, baby, you have gay face, and we all see it.
Exactly. Well,
but you keep protesting.
Someone said they're over there screaming at us to follow the path of Jesus, while meanwhile he is the least Jesus-like. I said, well, I mean, he's Jesus-like in the sense that I can see him like putting on a gown and having 12 guys around him on their knees, begging for forgiveness and giving thanks. But, other than that.
Well, there was a point. And he tries to have these conversations. The one dude with the big sign protests church services at that particular church because they have pride banners up all year round,
which is giving like Fred Phelps light.
So a fun moment was when Pastor Randy, who is the pastor of that church, was trying to have a conversation with someone, and dude kept saying Randy, because he kept acting like he wanted to talk to Randy, and they had already closed that loop when he said, I want to talk to you. And Randy said, I don't want to talk to you. And he said, well, why not? And Randy said, because you never listen.
Oop.
You only speak. And he walked away. And so he was talking to one of the vendors, and dude kept saying, Randy. And the vendor was like, clearly he wants to say something. And Randy said, he's just reliving his night. He dreams about me at night. And he says, Randy. Oh, Randy.
Oh, Randy.
And dude, was like, the blood drained from me. I cannot believe a pastor is mocking me with homosexual fantasy, whatever. Like, baby, no.
First of all, you can't.
I think this was. I think he just captioned what. What probably did.
Yeah, no one said homosexual, but you, baby pop.
Anyway, they're always out there. I guess it's an honor when they try to scream louder than you. But I had a fantastic sound system.
You did,
and multiple recordings happening, and this was my offering for Pride.
Yes. And so we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with that fabulous speech in its entirety.
We'll be right back.
I want to say good afternoon, Pitman. Happy Pride. It's an honor to be here today, right back where I grew up. As a child, my father used to bribe me with breakfast from the Glassboro McDonald's to attend CCD at what is now Pitman Elementary School. CCD is Catholic for missing your Saturday morning cartoons. He also dragged me to get a regular haircut at Joe's Barbershop on Broadway. For me, that was torture. My indignance was briefly noted and then ignored. Pitman is very much a part of my hometown. I grew up a few minutes up the road in what my parents would call Sewell proper. I saw my first movie in a theater at the Broadway Theater in Pitman in the late 1960s. Our Lady Queen of Peace was our parish. And if you can call the Catholic Church on Pitman Avenue by whatever this sign says now, congratulations, you know how to use a chosen name. Kudos. Yeah. I got my very first library card at the Pitman Library and Bob's Hobby Shop was about the coolest place on the planet. And every 4th of July growing up, we never missed watching the fireworks over Alcyon Lake. In June of 2021, my life had been forever changed by COVID. And my future was entirely uncertain. After nearly 35 years in Philadelphia, with half of them spent in service to my various communities, I returned to my ancestral home just up the road. I'd lost my business, my savings, and my sense of place in this world. Seeing those rainbow banners up and down Broadway with so many of the storefronts decorated with gorgeous rainbow displays, I turned to my husband, Charles, and I said, "How lovely. Clearly they know I'm back." I never thought I'd see such affirmation in this part of my hometown. Now I get to say thank you to those of you who've insisted on love and inclusion right here in my backyard that year and every year since. Happy 5th anniversary, Pride Alliance of Pitman. I'm gonna say it's disheartening to see the rainbow banners gone in a year when I know we need them the most. The storefronts have not disappointed this year, and you cannot remove our pride, our grit, or our determination by outlawing fabric. You can't. You can't take away what we carry inside. They can only show us how they feel about it. And we already know. With due respect to this year's entire graduating class, my heart is with the probably 10 or so graduates who were also, like Megan, represented by those rainbow banners. Yeah. Imagine having your picture on a banner and still being erased at the same time. I had to get used to that when I was young here too. I'm not here just to talk about irony and unintended consequences. I am here to celebrate pride. And maybe, just maybe, we can recognize some common ground in the process. Today, I earn my living as an addictions and co-occurring counselor specializing in the unique needs and experiences of the LGBTQIA+ community, together with my amazing therapy partner, Nicole McHenry. Please. We've built an award-winning treatment program that is fast becoming a national model. It's right up the road at Maryville in Turnersville. We've got a table full of tchotchkes and information right out there in the parking lot. We've seen outcomes never thought possible because we work from the simple premise that representation matters and everyone deserves to achieve recovery with dignity and respect to their full humanity, naturally including their sexual orientation and their gender identity. Like everyone else's orientation and gender identity have always been respected and affirmed in treatment. It's somehow innovative to finally also notice ours. When our world feels like it's falling apart, queer and trans people lifting one another up is an act of resistance. I am a parent, a wife, an auntie, and a sister. I'm a published writer, a member of the Association of LGBTQ+ Journalists, and as Patrick mentioned, the co-host of a top-rated podcast called Full Circle, the podcast. We're now in our 4th season with about 145 episodes of me running my mouth about whatever's going on. They're loud, aren't they? I'm trying. I'm also the chapter vice president and co-facilitator of P-Flag Collingswood and the co-facilitator and administrator for Transway, a peer discussion support group for the trans and non-binary community, and I've done that work since 2020. And I am a woman of trans experience who apologizes to no one for existing. I said all that part to say that unless I am disappeared, I'll use every available platform to tell my young siblings to square your shoulders, hold your heads high, and hold on tight to knowing exactly who you are. Because who and what you are isn't weird, it isn't sinful, and it isn't wrong. It is beautiful and important, and most of all, rare. Never allow others to define you. That is perhaps the greatest time waster of all. Never allow others to diminish you or dim your light, and never for a moment let a lie overshadow the truth you know and live. We need you, bold and alive. In times like these, queer and trans joy is an act of resistance. I spend a lot of my week talking with groups of people, groups who are struggling to find recovery from addiction, groups who are struggling to accept and embrace their identity in a world telling them they don't or shouldn't exist. Groups grasping to understand what is sometimes overwhelming new information about their loved ones. I begin each and every group reminding myself to lead these important conversations with love and with grace. In all of these groups, I ask participants to agree to two things: confidentiality and civility. I believe these two things are the bare minimum when we talk about hard things together. Agreeing not to weaponize the words that come from us when we are broken open, when we are terrified, or when we are trying desperately to hold on, that's essential. We promise one another not to turn someone else's pain into gossip. That simple agreement softens an entire room. It says, I will honor you as you honor me. When we promise civility, what we promise to one another is respect in our time together. It's a reminder that we all want exactly that. To be seen and heard and to have our very humanity respected. Mutual respect says, live and let live. Mutual respect leads to finding common ground. Respect says that even if I cannot understand you, if we come together face to face in good faith, we are less likely to leave that room and work to cause one another harm. When I insist on civility, what I am asking is that each of us bring our highest and best selves to our time together. We cannot do that in a shouting match. We cannot do that if our pockets are full of fearful lies and half-truths, overflowing with opinions on things that are literally none of our business. In a time devoid of leadership, community building is an act of resistance. I'm trans. Did I mention that? Yeah. I am not a problem to be solved or something to be eliminated. I like to believe that I add some value in this world. Time will tell my story just as it will for those who would see me gone. Here and now, at this point in our history, my existence is being politicized as a distraction. The rhetoric surrounding me and mine is meant to confuse and divide. It's meant to instill fear, because when we are afraid, we do not make good decisions. especially about people we've seldom or never bothered to call human in the first place. When we are fearful and distracted, it is impossible to summon our best selves. When fear takes hold, kindness is an act of resistance. Anyone who says they come from a place where there are no trans people comes from a place where we are oppressed and fear for our lives. The fact that safety might require us to hide is no measure of our existence. Our stories matter, and I, for one, will hide from no one. Not anymore. Not anymore. When the rhetoric gets so far out of hand, humans hide in fear for their lives. Solidarity is an act of resistance. Here in 2025, executive orders prohibit federal recognition of trans people in any aspect of civic life. I find that childish, churlish, and chilling. The history some would erase tells us you cannot order people from existence. You know, resistance doesn't always carry a bullhorn. In 2025, existing openly as a trans or gender expansive person is an act of resistance. Supporting us with your entire voice is an act of resistance. I'd like to say we're all still here in every color, shape, size, origin, and all the beautiful intersections. Queer, trans, black, brown, butch, femme, all the glorious and valid expressions in between, speaking every language and raised in every culture. I'd like to say all of the people my government is telling you to fear are still here, but some have already been gathered up. So only some of the people my government is telling you to fear are still right here. Boo. We are born into every type of family, regardless of the beliefs of our parents. Prayer has never once altered the sexuality or gender identity of a human being, no matter who does the praying. Not once. Every family comes to know the fact of us through acceptance or a commitment to ignorance when they cannot will us away. If you ever want to know what courage and determination really look like, I will introduce you to trans people who started fending for themselves before they were 15 years old. Many, not all, are still here. In a time when too few seek truth, truth-telling is an act of resistance. I believe each of us is called to find the place where we can acknowledge that every life is sacred. When they orchestrate division, standing together is an act of resistance. There's plenty of history for us to look at whether they burned those books or not. History is imprinted on too many souls to exist only as long as paper survives. When young Nazi sympathizers burned Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld's library in 1933, queer and trans people did not cease to exist, nor did we stop knowing we have a rich history in this world. And the inhuman ugliness being legislated against us right now in our nation will not eliminate us either. Trans children exist. I was one. These politicians are grotesquely attacking trans children with phrases like, protect the children. And my question to that is always, which ones? They aren't protecting anyone, and we're all less safe with folks making uninformed decisions about our lives. History will not be any kinder to the present day folks burning books. In times of chaos, peace is an act of resistance. For too long, it has been the job of the oppressed to ensure the oppressor's comfort. Growing up around here, I was taught that your rights end at my nose. Yours end where mine begin, and so on. I learned to live and let live. When this agreement is out of balance, and right now, folks, it's way out of balance, the oppressor has little cause to expect peace, and their legacy, like those who went before them, will be one of shame. While I believe in redemption for a living, I'm afraid they will never correct course until it costs them the only things they seem to care about: money and power. I believe America at her best is supposed to be able to be about our collective power, not the power of the wealthy few, telling us who to hate from on high. Dry. You know, when hate is the order of the day, love is an act of resistance. Shortly before his murder in 1978, Navy veteran Harvey Milk famously said, come out wherever you are. Because the theory is that when they hate us, when they know us, when they know us personally, it's harder to hate us. It's not impossible. They've recently scraped Harvey's name from a Navy ship that was christened to honor his legacy. But his legacy remains in the face of their ugliness. It lives within us, in our bones. Harvey Milk was murdered by someone with whom he tried to find common ground. If none of us is willing to continue that work, the work of finding grace, despite the fear in the hearts of others, I don't know a way forward. When minds are closed and hearts are hardened, hope, my friends, is an act of resistance. I don't know that many of you can fathom having the intimate details of your entire existence debated and dissected on national television, with the only goal being to demoralize and demean you for wanting to live authentically in a largely inauthentic world. Trans children are living that every day, and their only goal is authenticity. There is power in authenticity. From Dewey's coffee shop in 1965, to Compton's cafeteria in 1966, to Stonewall in 1969, to our 15 plus years of the AIDS pandemic, when I came of age terrified. Queer and trans people have been tested with literal fire for generations. What we have done, time after imperfect time, is stand together on whatever sliver of common ground we can find, and together we've educated, we've rallied, and we've advocated. We've nursed our own wounds, we have buried our own dead, and our authentic love has become a beacon of light to open one another's hearts throughout time. And that'll happen again. When misinformation is common, education is an act of resistance. We celebrate Pride to remind one another of our rich history of collective resilience. Our resilience is an act of resistance. And we have the audacity to say we belong here, with as much right to take up space as anyone else. We have as much right to a peaceful and dignified life as anyone else, and we do not require anyone's permission to exist. That is not how rights are supposed to work. There is a difference between arrogance and audacity. Assuming that you could possibly know me better than I know myself, that is arrogance. Knowing I have as much right to stand here among you and breathe this air, regardless of what you may think of me, that is audacity. And to my mind, that right is sacred. It belongs to all of us. No one can take away what we carry inside. When they even try, they should expect our resistance in all of its forms. Coming together and celebrating Pride, with or without the lampposts. That is most definitely an act of resistance. Happy Pride, Pitman, and thank you.
We're back. That was very powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did that, baby.
Tried.
No, you did not try. You succeeded. I think you touched a lot of hearts and minds. I think you lifted more than a few spirits that needed lifting. I think you put a bit of a brace in some spines.
It is so hard because literally this is the work I do. This really is my everyday, all day.
Yeah.
And, it's an honor to be able to talk about it. This is not just rhetoric for me. So I take it really seriously. And
it shows.
Try to engage everyone present without losing sight of what's happening, or what we as trans people need to steel our spines. Yeah, that. So, it was an honor to be asked. It was a challenge because this is my hometown.
Yeah.
Some of my bullies still live right here.
Fuck them. Because
no, but I will disregard them.
Because the person
fervor.
that they bullied is not the person that you are now.
Well, yes and no.
You are so much strong. I mean, you've always been stronger than them.
But the person I am now was trying to be me then, and they did their best to tell me how awful they thought that was.
And they're wrong.
No.
Everything they tried to do, they failed at, because look at you.
Still here.
Exactly.
Still here. But, it left a mark. For sure it did.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
I mean, one could argue that if it were not for them, you might not be the totality of the woman that you are right now. So for that, I guess we should thank them to some degree.
Well, I'll do that because,
Thanks, bitches.
I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of them.
There it is.
And I'm not going to do that anymore. I won't. No. Mm-mm.
Nor should you.
Good, because I'm not. And sadly, some of them now run our government.
Not well.
Of course not well. They can't do anything well because they're stuck in they're stuck in 8th grade. I have moved on.
It's one thing to peak in high school, but to peak in the 8th grade, my God.
No, I feel like they did. I can't say that for sure because I left at the end of 8th grade, but I assume, the preceding years were not better.
Yeah.
I don't see much enlightenment from the ones who were the worst. I think that was their peak. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? And I hope if they're queer children or grandchildren, or them, queer, got to hear me, they got something out of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm done thinking about them. I'm done, whatever.
You got too much good shit on your horizons and currently on your plate. So next.
The plate is full.
Plate is full.
Yeah, so apologies that this is not a full episode, but we wanted to share this with you.
This is the first mini-sode where we're actually together.
I know, right?
Normally I'm doing mini-sodes because you're not here.
I know.
Oh my God.
I know.
This is historic. Or herstory or something.
I'll take it. But I mean, this is a chunk of what I've been working on at a point where my job is so full and there's so much going on, and my volunteer work is so full and there's so much going on.
Right.
Writing this was kind of in fits and starts and thoughts, and I don't know. It felt right the night before, and I said, okay, I'm done. And then I edited it 3 more times before I did it.
No, my favorite is when you were like, here, read this and tell me if it's okay. And then I'm sitting there trying to read it, and the screen keeps jumping around. And I'm like, are you editing while I'm reading? And you were like, sorry.
I was.
I said, I'll wait till you're done. No, I'm done. I'm like, all right. 5 minutes later, it jumps again. You're like, I had a thought. But that's why it was so good.
Thank you. It's an enormous thing to know. We don't get a chance to talk very often. We get talked about on the daily.
More than we're talked to, yeah.
But trans people in particular, right now, don't get to speak for ourselves. We're seldom asked about what's being said about us.
Right.
We're seldom even asked to weigh in. And, they keep telling stories and they keep coming to conclusions. And the sickest, saddest part is that people who I thought were my friends will sit and tell me, no, maybe you all shouldn't play sports. Maybe there's something to that. Without a conversation, because they heard a snippet that somehow resonated with common sense. Except there's no common sense in it.
Yeah, no.
There are no facts involved in forming that opinion. And that is the exhausting part. Not that chuckleheads. I mean, I expect them to be chuckleheads, and they show up every time as chuckleheads. It's the people who I know better who show up going, well, but what about this part?
They're showing their ignorance. That's all they're doing. They're showing their blind spots.
Honey, if you love me, if you love us, assume it's asked and answered before you ask me the question. I mean, I'm happy to talk to people I love and clarify and discuss. But here's the thing. Show some grace and assume you are being told a lie about trans people unless it came out of the mouths of trans people or the experts who care for us. Anyone else doesn't bear listening to right now.
Right.
Not the pundits, not the politicians, not the jackasses who happen to have a microphone. Listen to us.
Right. And luckily there's more and more trans folks that have their own platforms.
We're getting there slow. But we're not mainstream.
Well,
we're not breaking into the mainstream. We've been making noise. We make noise where we can, but it's seldom one of us talks to the likes of the people who have an audience and gets listened to. So I will take every platform, small as it may be, to talk to the folks around me and say, we need you alive.
Exactly.
So that's what this is, and it was an honor to do it. I'll be speaking in Woodbury, New Jersey, which is on the other side of my hometown, in 2 weeks. So I'm going to go work on that.
Back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board. I'm going to try to have smart shit to say for that.
I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll try. In the meantime, you've been listening to Full Circle,
the podcast.
I am Martha Madrigal.
And I am Charles Tyson Jr.
Have a good night, y'all.
Bye, everyone. Full Circle is a Never Scared Productions podcast, hosted by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal, produced and edited by Never Scared, executive produced by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal. Our theme and music is by the Jingleberries. All names, pictures, music, audio, and video clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holders.